This is a standard office mouse, and this is the Razer Death Adder V2X Hyperspeed, which sounds like a name of a fighter jet, and it costs 30 times as much. Is it even worth the upgrade? Let's find out, shall we? So the V2X Hyperspeed has a maximum DPI of 14,000 with 35 Gs of acceleration and weighs in around 100 grams if you're using AA batteries and 90 grams if you're using AAA batteries, which in my opinion is considered a little heavy for a modern gaming mouse. Meanwhile, the Dell MS116 has a maximum DPI of 1000 and weighs in around 65 grams without its wire. And I couldn't find the acceleration value of this mouse, but it's probably around 10 or so looking at other similar mice. Now that you know the specs of these two, let's talk tracking accuracy. The tracking accuracy of the Razer is phenomenal, and while playing Valorant and other games, I did not notice even a single moment where there was any sort of delay or inaccuracy. It was almost like I was holding the weapon in game myself. However, that was using the 2.4 GHz dongle. It wasn't so great in Bluetooth mode, and we'll talk more about that in the later part of this video. On the other side, we have the Dell Office Mouse, which worked very well for browsing the internet and even some light gaming and editing. However, as soon as you try to play competitive games that require fast movements and precision accuracy, the illusion quickly falls apart. It felt sluggish, like there was a delay from when I moved the mouse to when it actually registered in game, which felt horrible. Now the Razer has 7 programmable buttons, even more with Razer Hypershift, which you can bind to one of the buttons and that button will basically switch profiles. For gaming, extra buttons do help. You can bind them to actions you do often and you don't have to worry about moving your hands away from the WSD keys, but I didn't really find myself using them as much as I thought I would. Now you might feel differently about this, but unless you're playing MMOs where there's a lot of different actions you can do, I don't see the use for so many different buttons. Maybe just the 2 are enough for Valorant or CSGO. But for video editing, these buttons are actually very useful because you can bind them to macros, and that helps a lot. But what about the Office mouse? Well, maybe bind the middle click to something like the subscribe button down below. Obviously the Dell mouse doesn't have any software, it's just plug and play, but the Razer does. And there's so many features, you can probably spend all day messing with them. It's called Razer Synapse 3 and it's actually pretty nice. You can bind extra buttons to macros and even set up an auto clicker, which gets like 40 clicks per second, which is insane. Your single fire weapons will be turned into automatic with this, and it kind of feels like cheating. And obviously you can set up DPI and different profile settings, which is normal for most mouse software. My one problem with Razer Synapse though is that you need to log into a Razer account to use any of these features, and every now and again the Razer software will just automatically sign you out, which disables all of the macros, which is utterly nonsensical. But other than that, it's all sunshine and rainbows. The Dell mouse is wired, and there are wireless variants of this mouse, but at that point you should just buy a wired gaming mouse like this Red Dragon M612 that cost $18. The V2X Hyperspeed, however, is wireless, with a battery life of around 235 hours if you're using AA batteries and around 600 hours if you're using Bluetooth. But when I connected the mouse using Bluetooth, it was almost unusable in gaming and editing. Even simple tasks like browsing the internet became an annoyance. It would constantly skip around and be generally unpredictable. Let's talk build quality and ergonomics. Obviously the Razer here is the clear winner. What were you expecting? It's a much sturdier mouse and your hand doesn't start to scream in pain after a couple of hours of use like it does on the Dell. The buttons are nice and tactile, unlike the annoying sound the Dell makes. You can also feel the bumps in the Razer scroll wheel, which feel quite nice, unlike the Dell scroll wheel that's broken. That's right, after a couple of months the Dell scroll wheel broke. But let's have a sound comparison before we talk more about that. Now the scroll wheel can break on any mouse, even expensive ones like this Quirks wireless from Asus, and every mouse has a rated lifespan of clicks after which it's expected to stop working. According to Razer, the V2X Hyperspeed has around a 60 million click lifespan, but I wouldn't really worry about this metric as we don't see mice failing often. Some mice like the Logitech are well known for having double clicking issues after a while of use, but thankfully I haven't noticed any issues with the Razer yet, and I don't expect to for at least a couple of years. Now even if your office mouse does break, you can easily replace it because this one only cost me $2, which is way too cheap for a mouse. By the way, this was probably used. The Death Adder V2X Hyperspeed from Razer directly cost around $60, but you can get it on sale for around $40 from other websites. Now is it really worth upgrading to a proper gaming mouse? Well, it depends. If you're a casual gamer that only plays simple games or games where every millisecond of response time isn't a concern, or maybe you're not that good for it to matter, then this mouse is totally acceptable. And I personally used an office mouse like this one for many months, and trust me, I was really good at PvP. You can ask my Discord. But honestly, I wouldn't really use this for competitive gaming, but I also wouldn't go out and spend $200 on a brand new gaming mouse. As I said before, the Red Dragon M612, which only costs $18, is also a great choice. It's definitely not as good as the Razer V2X Hyperspeed, but it's absolutely much better than the cheap office mouse. However, if you want a really long lasting mouse, then I would definitely look above the $40 price point because there's some really good options there. But on that note, there's links to all of the mice I mentioned in the description down below, and you should definitely check out this video. You might actually find that interesting. See ya.